today, it's geofencing and the powers that technology enables us to deliver to display campaigns. We utilize it within Fluid Ads for kind of anybody with geographical elements to their data or to their audience, which really can be applied to the majority of customers. So in terms of geofencing, kind of the three core things that identify it as a tactic. The first is its ability to define a particular fence or boundary on a map. And then once that has been created and any users pass into the area, our audience is then defined. And we are able to kind of target them across the web, wherever they might go, on smartphones, tablets, and any website. That can be in either real time, so when they're physically in the geofence, or it can be at a later date. So, for example, a user can enter a geofenced area kind of yesterday, and either we could serve an ad to them at that moment in time, or we could serve an ad to them now until kind of the end of the month, or however long we would like to target them. Important things to remember with geofencing is that it's not something that's available on GDN and also other large aggregators. That's because they focus predominantly on geo-targeting, which enables you normally to have a radius around a city or town or postcode, kind of normally within a mile or 1 kilometer radius. It tends to be more powerful and accurate than those technologies. The key reason being it utilizes kind of Wi-Fi, cellular data, RFID data, as opposed to the standard IP targeting that we're more familiar with geo-targeting. You'll all be familiar with that kind of when you go on to check the weather or anything on your machine or on your phone. It will try and pinpoint where you are based on your IP address, and often that isn't particularly accurate. You know, it can be kind of a few miles down the road. Geofencing really enables you to get kind of within a few meters of kind of your person and therefore the building that you're after. So to put it kind of as a standard sentence, geofencing is the use of GPS or RFID technology to create a virtual geographic boundary. It enables software to trigger a response when a mobile device enters or leaves a particular area. The way I like to define this the most, or kind of something that's most familiar in terms of the technology, is something like one of the fast food click and collect points, whereby you would physically cross over into the car park or kind of the drive-through of any of those places, and that is when you're able to kind of trigger the fact that you're there. And it's very accurate. You know, if you've ever tried to do those kind of while you're still on the road or driving past, it won't work until you're physically in the car park or have joined the premises at least. And it's exactly the same technology that we're utilising to be able to harness the audience. So how does it work? So what we're able to do is kind of use specific criteria, such as addresses or postcode or zip code, and specific landmarks if necessary, to really kind of hone in on a particular location which might have a real purpose. So it enables us to bulk upload address files, so we can utilize kind of a whole list of addresses, postcodes, or full line addresses, and then refine those by being able to hand draw custom shapes around them. So we can either do that as a radius around that location, say 0.05 kilometers, so a few kind of 100 meters, or we're able to kind of hand draw them and really manipulate them to be the shape of that particular building. It states here that we're kind of accurate to 10 meters square. I think that's what we like to have in to be conservative. In reality, there are occasions, particularly when you're very close to kind of a mast or kind of got very good kind of signal, that we're able to get it kind of more accurate than that. But kind of the 10 meter square accuracy is a safe one to go for. We're able to target up to 500 locations per campaign, meaning that we can upload 500 addresses. Obviously, if there's a requirement for more, we can do that, but it's kind of done over a variety of different campaigns if that's the case. We only collect users that have specifically completed the action of entering the geofence. So once the geofence is defined, only people that have been in that geofence will be able to be targeted kind of thereafter. And obviously we can add to that targeting to get it more specific. So we can have very specific times that we want the ad to serve. We can restrict the devices that we're serving it to, and all kinds of things that we can overlay on top to make sure that we are kind of really getting not only the people that we want in a geographical sense, but also that may have completed another action, such as search for something or been on their mobile phone, that kind of thing. In terms of the timeline that we're able to apply to geofences, we can target consumers from the specific date that the campaign starts, or on the specific event date that might be occurring, and then up to 30 days afterwards. There is a potential that you can go past 30 days, but 30 days is the kind of maximum that we apply, given that normally cookies will expire within 30 days, and therefore kind of will require a renewal of them, at which point they're not in the geofence. So I'll just play a video here, and for one of our customers, AECOM for National Highways, which is an example of how we have utilised geofencing. So for National Highways, a very specific kind of element that they were dealing with is the litter that was in many of the lay-bys. In fact, it was a House of Commons debate that occurred, whereby it was raised in the House of Commons that it was becoming a real issue. Therefore, at Fluid Ads, we came up with a solution for them where we can utilise the geofence technology to target very specific geofences on the A50 and A180, to enable us to have or put ads in front of people who regularly are in the geofences around the lay-bys. Once they were targeted and we could capture them, this shows kind of how we would have refined some of those elements to make sure it was very specifically only in the geofences. We can then build up the audience of people who are regularly in the fences and then serve them an ad to remind them to utilize the bins, or remind them to kind of utilize different rest stops that may be further down the journey. So it's a really good way of kind of suggesting other places that they could go to, and equally for this customer, a really good way of harnessing some data on these specific users. Also, I'm just going to show a quick video here that explains kind of the way that we do it. Perfect. So I'll just whiz forward then into the applications of geofencing. So as I mentioned before, there are multiple different methods or reasons that you would utilize a geofence. Most businesses will have an element of geographic data assigned to their business, particularly when it comes to their customers, and kind of a grouping of their audience that they may be after. So just to run through a few of the examples that we might be able to utilize. The first is to target customers who visit or commute through your business's location. So a really standard thing is that you can pinpoint your kind of target market in terms of the geography around a particular store, and be able to target only those people specifically. This is really good for very localized kind of chains. So things like fast food stores or places that you really wouldn't travel very far for. So in this example, we've got a grocery store, whereby if you were anywhere else, you would go to an alternative. It's kind of that really strong location-driven, kind of localized performance or customers, that is the reason that we'd utilize this. The second one is to target competitors' locations. So obviously, what better way than targeting your potential customers than targeting your competitors where they already are, and manage to kind of persuade them to come to you instead by offering them kind of price matching guarantees or other promotional offers. Particularly strong when you've got a real strong draw as to why your business might be better, or more suitable for them. A third option here is to drive foot traffic to a physical location. An example being a tourist attraction, whereby you could geofence the local hotels and visitor centres. So again, it's utilising that geofenced kind of tactic to be able to secure very specific audience people. And in this case, it's those that are kind of tourists, whereby they have a really strong location kind of bias. They are going to be in hotels and visitor centres, and therefore we can target those to promote similar products such as alternative tourist attractions. Um, as well as that, we've got the ability to target locations for recruitment. At Fluid Ads, it's something that we do kind of all the time for different customers, whereby we can target kind of locations of work that may be your competitors. So, as an example, we have customers that are targeting or are looking for kind of nurses and doctors kind of to work in their kind of private setting. We're therefore able to target kind of alternative settings where you may well get a strong kind of percentage of doctors and nurses. So other hospitals, other doctor surgeries, kind of universities, that kind of thing. Also, we can increase brand awareness with concentrated spends. So, a really good example of this is kind of any sports stadiums or kind of venues where you've got a really large number of people. So, music events, that kind of thing. So, therefore, if you've got a really strong connection to that particular sport or event that's being kind of run in that building, obviously it's a perfect way of getting your ad in front of only those people. So the way that would work is you could geofence the stadium, potentially the car parks, and that whilst they're at the event, they could have a real-time ad being served to them if they are kind of on the web while they're there. Or alternatively, we could create an audience from them, so kind of a sports stadium audience, and then serve to them kind of wherever they may go in the week kind of following. Potentially kind of with a follow-up ad, it could be very specific, kind of mentioning the fact, they were there and, are they interested in other events? All kinds of benefits to that kind of technology. And finally, we've got the identification of high concentrations of customers. So a really good example of this is something where there are large areas within towns of very specific kind of demographic or business orientated people that are, specifically fall into your target market. So in this example, we've got a university whereby we can target universities or particular kind of areas of universities within a geofence, and then collect those users to be able to serve ads to thereafter. All sorts of purposes that we can utilize this particular skill for. So another thing that we can do within the geofences is the ability to measure success offline. And obviously, online tracking is utilized quite often. So the ability to find a user who has been online and then subsequently visited your website through kind of UTMs, through pixel tracking. There's lots that we can do to identify that that user has come to your business off the back of an ad. However, what's always been the unknown is the ability or the case where a user can be served an ad based on their geographic kind of location, but then happen to go into store, or they are promoting a physical location that they then go into, as opposed to clicking on the ad or going to the website. Obviously, that's still really good for the customer. It still means that they're getting a conversion one way or another. But what that also means is it's previously been really hard to track because you're seeing an online ad and then physically going into store. The advantage with geofences and its technologies is that we're actually able to introduce something called conversion zones, which are almost reverse geofences. So what they do is they actually track a user going in them after having seen an ad. So if you think about the kind of the way that would work is you can have a geofence that's targeting people or capturing people to target an ad to, and then you can have a geofence as a conversion zones around a physical location. to track people that when they enter that. Therefore, being able to tie up the two and counting that as a conversion. It's really good to be able to kind of track that user in both ways, online and then in store. And this really goes a long way in kind of adding some data to the previously unquantifiable, which often limited the benefits of kind of the display advertising area. A good example of this, if we have a look at here, we've got this particular customer who has visited a particular geofence, meaning that they were then served an ad because they were in kind of one of our areas that were required. Off the back of that, they have then physically walked in to a store. Therefore, tying up the two together, we can count that as a geofence conversion, and then kind of fill or give that information back to the customers with regards to both the online and the offline conversions that we've received. There are a few limitations. Obviously, this is incredible technology. However, a few things that may prevent us from being able to track these users are things like a change in device. If they saw the ad and were served the ad via a desktop, and then subsequently kind of went into the store with their phone, there's a potential that we can't track, and tie the two up together. In addition to that, they may be on the same device, but they potentially have refreshed their cookies, or it may be after the 30 days, in which case, unfortunately, we would lose, although we see the user in both locations, we wouldn't be able to tie them up together. And finally, the last kind of limitation, I suppose, of conversion zones is the person having the kind of the right location services turned on their phone to track them going into that location. But either way, we can utilize it to really benefit our data, but not necessarily rely on it as kind of the only sense of success. But it's a really good way of showing other ways that we're benefiting from that particular campaign. Other campaign metrics that we can utilize within that are kind of cost per visits. Obviously, kind of once we've got some good conversion data in there, we can work out how much it's costing us to get people to attend. The total visit rate, so how many people we are sending based on how many people saw the ad initially. View through visits, so those that saw an ad and have ended up in that location, not needing to click, and also therefore the click through visits, so people that saw an ad, clicked on it, and then have subsequently turned up kind of in a physical sense rather than virtual. So really powerful elements here that we can pull into the campaign. So I've gone through a couple, but just to kind of really clarify some of the catches that go alongside geofencing, because whilst it's incredible technology, there are some limitations that will prevent us from really benefiting from it 100% all the time. So geofence success will always massively vary depending on location. A really good kind of example of this is in America, where we always get better access to the data associated with geofence kind of audiences. These are really unique audiences we're targeting down to kind of, the within the 10 meter square kind of element. And therefore, it isn't just off the shelf. We are purchasing the data behind each of these users. And therefore, that data is more prominent in some locations than others. Equally, population density will be higher in some locations than others, meaning that there is a greater pool of people to be able to add into the geofence. Another key thing that really interrupts the geofence technology is Wi-Fi, which can sometimes mask the user's mobile signature and will give us or appear to be the location that Wi-Fi is instead. And sometimes, obviously, some larger businesses utilize Wi-Fi kind of VPNs, or they log into routers that are kind of not in the same location, which obviously can sometimes give us an unfair view on where that person is. This is particularly a problem when we target some of the events whereby they may be in a conference center or a hotel, whereby users would log on to Wi-Fi as opposed to using their own cellular data, which is kind of the core way that we pick up their geofence data. Also, if you have a really high population or kind of concentration of users in one particular place, so a good example of this is a football match, then we can get mass disruption. So basically the signal will get scrambled if you've got lots and lots of people very close to each other. Therefore, it's something that I would always do is make sure we include things like the car parks, where people tend to be slightly further apart. And yes, they come together in a very highly concentrated stadium, but we have the opportunity to pick those people up kind of within the car parks instead to harness those users instead. Another problem we have within the geo fencing is that when we're targeting them in real time, it does require the user to be on a website where we can buy and purchase them. What that means is if I am within a geofence that's relevant and I want to serve an ad, or the customer wants to serve an ad to me there and then, obviously I need to be on my phone on a website where ads are present to be able to purchase that person and therefore serve an ad to them in real time. So whilst the concept and technology works behind being able to target conferences and things like that, obviously if you're highly engaged in whatever you're looking at, and therefore sporting events is a key thing, you are unlikely to be kind of regularly browsing the internet and making lots of page impressions of which that user can then be purchased. Um, so the really good way of doing this is making sure that you can secure a user and target them kind of in the last couple, in the days following. So setting a yesterday or kind of an hour ago limit on the geofence audience criteria means that you can serve an ad to them kind of afterwards when they're far more likely to be on a mobile device accessing the internet, meaning that we're able to purchase them to a greater extent. The third catch on here is that the audience collection can encounter problems. As we've been through before, we aren't always able to kind of to catch everybody. There's always going to be some elements that means that we can't. So on to number 4. An example of this is where they don't have location service enabled. So many apps will have kind of, it will come up with a message to you, are you happy to share location services? Or this app will require location services. And the majority of people will have something on their phone that picks up location services. But on top of that, we need the CPM to be high enough to be able to win the bid for that ad inventory as well. So a user will need all of these in place so that we can target them. And finally, the curse of everything online is that cookies will generally renew after 30 days unless they renew them earlier by refreshing or deleting their cookies. In which case, kind of any data that we had stored in them will kind of be replaced and then slowly be built up again. So in that sense, geofencing is really good for places whereby people are there consistently. So if you're after kind of businesses where it's their head office or their place of work where people are regularly there, obviously we're able to pick those up all the time and renewing their membership into the audience even after kind of the 30 days has gone, because they're there again. Things like events or conferences is where this kind of issue affects more, because we only store those people having been there for a very time dependent event for kind of up to 30 days. And after that point, the users have gone. So it's really key that we get ads in front of them at that moment in time and utilize all of the other tactics that we have to make sure that kind of there's an alternative that comes in after the cookies begin to expire. So within the kind of audience behavior, there's a few insights that we'd like to share with you that you can use. So as an example, a person visiting a conference center on the day of a digital marketing conference, which many businesses have conferences that they can attend. And the audience behavior or insight that we can use from that is that it's a person interested in digital marketing. From the fact that they are attending, they are either interested themselves and want to utilize it, or they are likely to be one of the businesses promoting it and therefore probably have a need for some tech to help them as well. As well as that, you might have someone visiting a car dealership on a weekend, and therefore people in the geofence around that car dealership are likely to be people who are interested in buying a car, or maybe even suggesting that they're entering a new life stage. So actually, if they're there, we could add some further demographic information onto it to say that actually they're interested in buying a car. That could suggest that they're extending their family. They're kind of they're changing jobs. They need a different vehicle. There could be all types of things that we can infer based on the fact that they've been in these different locations. Also, we might have people attending a stadium on the evening of a music concert, therefore suggesting that they're music fans, theatre or art lovers. And if they're fans of all of these things, they may well be kind of appreciative of a restaurant ad, to kind of coincide with all these things that they do. Generally suggesting that they are outgoing people who enjoy kind of a social life and being able to benefit from all these things that are put on locally. Also, we might have kind of audiences in an airport, hotel or tourist destination. So as well as the obvious that these people are traveling and kind of not utilizing that as their home location, but kind of as a tourist kind of location instead. It also suggests they are people with disposable incomes. They're people that are able to go on and or visit one of these locations because they can afford to do so. Um, Also, we might have somebody that's visiting a competitor location. So, therefore, if they're in a competitor location, they are likely to be somebody that is interested in your product or specifically the product that you and your competitors offer. So, therefore, it's a really good way of being able to target or geofence those other competitors and persuade them that your business may potentially be better for them. And finally, we also have the customers that are visiting your locations. So if we know that they're visiting you and that they are kind of regularly in your locations, they're a known audience that we can establish some loyalty with. So we might want to serve them kind of a discount. We might want to serve them a promotion for kind of the latest menu or products that you're offering. Because we know in general that the brand awareness is very strong. They know who you are, they visit you regularly. But what we can do with those is make sure that they continue to come back and potentially increase the frequency of which they come to you. So I think kind of in terms of geofencing, that explains it, kind of what we do, and particularly how Fluid Ads utilize it. Within the Fluid Ads kind of business, there's two opportunities. We either have our kind of self-service opportunity, whereby you can build your own geofences and target them however you wish. Or we have the managed service one, which kind of I manage the managed service kind of side of the business, in terms of being able to help you build those fences and kind of report back on the way that they're working, kind of in a more managed service kind of scenario.